Hi there everyone, welcome back to another Just a Thought. Now with today's Just a Thought, the title of it is taken from a very, very famous song, and I bet probably that for about 99% of you it will be the only song by this singer that you happen to know, but I'm sure you all know it. So the singer is James Blunt and the song is Yes. That's right, I bet someone's singing it now, aren't they? Yes, You're Beautiful. That's the song, massive hit a few years ago. I want to share some thoughts today on perhaps a bit of an unusual subject for me to cover, you may think, about beauty and appearance. And I hasten to add that this is not my new beauty tips segment. Okay, let's just get that out there. Maybe one day, who knows, stranger things have probably happened. Now, it may seem, as I say, a little bit strange. Maybe you could even be thinking perhaps a little bit frivolous in the light of all the circumstances that we're in and our focus to be talking about such things. But I think actually don't underestimate the effect on the way people think on their emotional and mental well-being, of how others regard them and what they think of them and what they think of themselves in terms of outward appearance. Now these thoughts stem from really two things. One is that I am reading the Bible through in chronological order at the moment, so that means that the Bible of course is not set out chronologically in the way that it's set out in the Old Testament and in the Old Testament. So you've got Nehemiah, for example, that deals with the events at the end of the history period covered by the Old Testament, right bang slap in the middle of the Old Testament. Job, which is around about the same sort of place in the Old Testament as Nehemiah, deals with events sort of round about the time of Genesis. And I've been reading about Abraham and Jacob, who of course were grandfather and grandson, and about their respective wives. And the other thing was that I was about to do a Zoom interview recently for a broadcast, and if you go into Zoom and you go into the settings, you will find a setting on there which is entitled Touch Up Your Appearance. That's the wording, to whatever extent you wish. So you can look a bit like this, or you can look something like Barbie's boyfriend Ken, or really anything in between. So you could maybe try that out for yourself and see if it makes any difference. Who knows? You know, the latter of those two things highlights, doesn't it, the fact that we are concerned with our appearance, the way that we come across. You know, those photos that you want to share on something like Instagram or Facebook, the ones of you and your friend in those old days where we were able to have photos with our friends and they look absolutely amazing and you look, well, maybe slightly less than your best, shall we say. Would you share that photo? Now, some people would, some people wouldn't. I suspect many of us wouldn't, would they? Those less flattering photos of ourselves. Now, there is nothing wrong with wanting to look your best, is there, really? Nothing wrong with that at all. Wanting to look good, wanting to look smart, wanting to look beautiful. Why not? But it highlights, doesn't it, our concern over how we portray ourselves, about how we come across, about how people might think about us, and of course, how we think about ourselves. Now, the Bible actually says quite a lot about beauty and appearance, and not just about ladies. So 1 Samuel 16:12, where Jesse brings out his sons to have one chosen and anointed by Samuel as king. All of the other sons are rejected, but David, the youngest son, is chosen, and it says that he is handsome, and it particularly draws attention to his beautiful eyes. So there you go. Now I'm going to come back to David in a moment. Now, of course, as I always say with this is just a thought. Okay, this is not a detailed, deeply theological survey of beauty. in the Old and New Testament. Just some thoughts for you. So take Sarai, Abraham's wife. Now the context that I want to speak about Sarai is when Abraham and Sarai go down to Egypt, and Abraham is fearful because Sarai is so beautiful. He thinks that the Egyptians might take her away from him because she's so beautiful and kill him. So he comes up with this idea to say that she's my sister. Actually, he was related to her. Saying she's my sister so that he wouldn't get killed. But this, of course, causes all manner of problems because Pharaoh takes a bit of a shining to our Sarai and takes him as his wife, and then this judgment comes upon him as a result. Now, I don't know if you picked up on this, but Sarai at this time is in her mid-60s. Now, I hasten to add, my friends, that being in your 60s is really not, it's not old at all, okay? It's the new 40, isn't it? The way that things are. But what I'm trying to emphasise is that she's not a young woman, but it says that she is incredibly beautiful. You do get the impression that she was one of those, like when the woman comes into the room, that people really notice her. I'm guessing that she had that kind of look. And the interesting thing is that it happens again, doesn't it? The same thing happens with Abimelech later on. I don't know how much time passes, but the same thing happens. Abraham's worried that someone's going to want to take her for a wife and do away with him. As I say, don't know how much time has passed, but she's older than her mid-60s. And I suppose the point of all this is to say that beauty is not about age, is it? Age is just a number. The beauty is irrelevant. I think so many people would point to and aspire beauty with the young, and it's really not. It's really not at all. So, as I say, just a thought there for you to mull over. Now, what about Jacob? He is besotted, isn't he, with a young girl called Rachel. And it says in Genesis 29:17 that Rachel had a lovely figure and was beautiful. That really draws attention to that. It contrasts with Rachel's sister Leah, and all we're really told about Leah is that she has weak eyes. Now, I don't know exactly what that's referring to, but it was possibly referring to some form of ophthalmia. It may have been something medical, I don't know. But you notice the contrast. Lovely figure, beautiful on the one hand, versus weak eyes. Massive contrast there, isn't there? Now the father, Laban, wants to marry off Leah to Jacob. Perhaps he thinks, because of her appearance or whatever, I don't know, that she may not get married. I don't know. But he deceives Jacob into thinking that Leah is Rachel. I don't know quite how that happened, but I do understand that they wore veils on their wedding day. I don't know, soft lighting, maybe a glass of wine too many or whatever, but Jacob doesn't realise that he has married the wrong woman. He's not very happy about that, funnily enough, when he finds out. But in due time, he does marry the love of his life, Rachel. Now it says that Jacob's love for Rachel was greater than Leah's. There seems to be, Jacob really, really loved Rachel, so perhaps you take that into consideration somewhere along the line. But it seems like Leah was rejected for her looks. And life, of course, can reflect that sometimes, can't it? But what strikes me, what's really interesting, is that God chose the Messiah, Jesus, to come through, not Rachel's line, but Leah's line. The world may reject you or I based upon what it thinks is beautiful, but God doesn't, and God won't. Now let's come back to David with his lovely eyes. Now, he wasn't chosen by Samuel. what Samuel thought a king should look like. I don't know, tall, regal, impressive, or whatever, I don't know. Actually, when David stepped up to fight Goliath, Saul looked at him, he looks at Goliath, and he's like, you're just a little boy. This is like a mighty warrior that's sort of been trained all his life for this moment. Saul was judging David by what he saw, in contrast to what he thought was a mighty warrior. And of course, we know how that turned out, don't we? Oh yes. Now, of course, Samuel, first of all, chooses the oldest son, I think it's called Eliab, but God chose David. And he says to Samuel those famous words in 1 Samuel 16:7. But the Lord said to Samuel, do not consider his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him. The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. Now, I don't honestly know why we're told that David had lovely eyes. But he wasn't chosen, was he, for his looks or what was seen outwardly. And maybe the reference to his eyes is a bit like how the Bible says, it speaks about the windows of the soul, doesn't it? That the eyes are the windows to the soul. Maybe God saw that beautiful soul. Maybe he saw, like we're told elsewhere, that David was a man after God's heart. But may we also not judge by appearances and not discount people for how they look, but look at the heart, look at the character and the nature. Very much tied in with our vision, yeah? To see others as God does. And in that same vein, I guess, to see us as he does. Just a few more verses. Proverbs 31:30. This is, of course, about the wife of noble character in Proverbs. And it says, and again, another famous verse in this kind of context, charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. That's Proverbs 31:30. Now, a couple of things here. I don't believe that is talking about beauty in the sense of fleeting, as in aging. Remember what I said a few minutes ago. Some translates speak of something that is vain, that is unsatisfactory, not enough. Now, Proverbs 31 could be read as looking for the sort of qualities that you might look for in a wife, but I think actually that I guess King Lemuel, that these sayings come from, he's talking about, he's actually talking prophetically about the church, about the bride of Christ, who looks a bit more, comes across a bit more like the bride of Frankenstein sometimes, to be honest with you. But Ephesians 5:27 speaks about Christ, being a bit more serious now, I'm sorry, speaks about Christ through his love and sacrifice, who makes the church, his bride, radiant and beautiful. You see, what makes us, you and me, as the church, beautiful is what Christ has done for us. And I love that. That reference to the fear of the Lord, of course, is not about being scared of God. It's more like having a sense of reverence of him, you know, that we are to revere and that we are to love God in response. And just the final scripture that I want to pick up on is a really interesting one. Today, actually, I was reading through Exodus and reading about the tabernacle, and to be honest with you, I find it quite a slog going through looking at all the detail of the tabernacle, to be honest with you. Sorry about that. But this really stood out to me in Exodus 38 verse 8. It says, they made the bronze basin and its bronze stand from the mirrors of the women who served at the entrance to the tent of meeting. I don't know what function these women had. We're not told, I don't think, anything about them elsewhere. But this their mirrors were made into the basin for sacrificial washing during the temple service. they sacrificed something that would enhance how they look to others, an aid to their beauty, something that would affect their appearance for the sake of God's kingdom. And that really spoke to me powerfully. What might that look like for you and I? Interesting one. Now, there's loads more that I can say on this subject. I've probably gone on way longer than I planned to, but I find this a really interesting subject to delve into. I don't know, let's start some conversations about this stuff. Let me know what you think about this topic. We haven't gone into it, but there's all sorts of things that we could talk about, isn't there, about Esther and all of that side of things. Really, really interesting. But I do just want to close by saying that for any of you who struggle with low self-esteem, especially in this area of looks, and men and women, remember that you are an image bearer of God. That when God was creating the heavens and the earth, when he came to make people, up to that point he said that his creation was good, but when he made you and I, he said it was very good. And just want to say, don't judge by appearances, and that includes judging yourself. Be kind, always, and that includes to yourself as well. Now, I hope you found that interesting, maybe slightly different topic, maybe something you thought about, maybe not, I don't know. As I say, I'd love to hear from you, your experiences of this. So please do get in touch with me, because I'd be fascinated to know. So that's it. This coming weekend, really looking forward to church online on Sunday. We've got David preaching this week, and of course we are in the midst of our time of worship and prayer and fasting, 21 days for the one, and I just want to encourage you to keep going with that. You will have seen we've been putting out encouragements and reflections. All this week we'll be doing that probably about 3 times a week. All sorts of different people are going to be bringing those. There'll be some different voices, some different faces, and I just trust that will really speak to you, that bless you, and that'll encourage you. So we look forward to catching up on Sunday, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the day. I hope you have a great weekend. God bless you all, stay safe, and catch up with you very soon. Take care.